rightfully so. But of course, the major concern is human loss.
So you have no idea.
So this looks like some sort of a concerted effort to attack the World Trade Center that is underway in downtown New York. We're going to give you a replay of what we just saw. And I'm hoping that I may see some sort of fire equipment coming in or some sort of observation plane. But it was obviously designed to attack the World Trade Center. I'm going to show you that. Here's a replay of the videotape. In a second, that looks like a good-sized plane came in and hit the World Trade Center from the other side. So this is obviously, or would seem to be, and again, I'm dealing in speculation, but it would seem like there is a concerted attack against one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
Good evening. Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices, secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror. The pictures of airplanes flying into buildings, fires burning, huge structures collapsing, have filled us with disbelief, terrible sadness, and a quiet, unyielding anger. These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong. A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shattered steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve. America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world, and no one will keep that light from shining. Today, our nation saw evil, the very worst of human nature, and we responded with the best of America, with the daring of our rescue workers, with the caring for strangers and neighbors who came to give blood and help in any way they could. Immediately following the first attack, I implemented our government's emergency response plans. Our military is powerful, and it's prepared. Our emergency teams are working in New York City and Washington, D.C. to help with local rescue efforts. Our first priority is to get help to those who have been injured and to take every precaution to protect our citizens at home and around the world from further attacks. The functions of our government continue without interruption. Federal agencies in Washington, which had to be evacuated today, are reopening for essential personnel tonight and will be open for business tomorrow. Our financial institutions remain strong, and the American economy will be open for business as well. The search is underway for those who are behind these evil acts. I've directed the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to find those responsible and to bring them to justice. We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbored them. I appreciate so very much the members of Congress who have joined me in strongly condemning these attacks. And on behalf of the American people, I thank the many world leaders who have called to offer their condolences and assistance. America and our friends and allies join with all those who want peace and security in the world. and we stand together to win the war against terrorism. Tonight I ask for your prayers for all those who grieve, for the children whose worlds have been shattered, for all whose sense of safety and security has been threatened. And I pray they will be comforted by a power greater than any of us, spoken through the ages in Psalm 23. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. This is a day when all Americans from every walk of life unite in our resolve for justice and peace. America has stood down enemies before, and we will do so this time. None of us will ever forget this day, yet we go forward to defend freedom and all that is good and just in our world. Thank you, good night, and God bless America.
Esta noche en Hechos, Estados Unidos responderá. Va a perseguir y castigar a los responsables del atentado, advierte el presidente Bush. El líder terrorista Osama Bin Laden, el principal sospechoso. Esta noche tendremos el recuento de los hechos, el secuestro de aviones, las llamadas de auxilio de los pasajeros, la destrucción de las Torres Gemelas y el impacto contra el Pentágono. Dramáticas imágenes, desesperados, saltaron al vacío. La solidaridad del mundo con el pueblo de Estados Unidos.
Muy buenas noches. Hoy el mundo ha sido testigo del fin violento y cruel de una era y el inicio de otra. De otra era llena de temores e incertidumbre. Una era que no anuncia nada bueno. Al menos no esta noche. El atentado terrorista contra el mayor imperio del mundo en este fin de siglo, en este fin e inicio de siglo, y lo que será su respuesta, ha arrinconado hoy al mundo, impactando con esta ola de terror a la humanidad toda. El ataque terrorista que sufrió esta mañana Estados Unidos, el peor en toda su historia, el primero en su territorio, ha alterado ya esta noche los equilibrios del mundo, donde lo que era imposible, vulnerar la seguridad estadounidense, dejó de serlo hoy, muy temprano, cuando comandos no identificados secuestraron 4 aviones, estrellando 2 de ellos contra las Torres Gemelas del World Trade Center, en el pleno corazón de Manhattan. El otro en el símbolo del ejército más poderoso del mundo, el Pentágono, sede y cuartel general de las Fuerzas Armadas de Estados Unidos. Esta noche se desconoce el número de muertos, lo que confirma la magnitud del golpe. Pero solo de los pasajeros que iban en los 4 aviones secuestrados y estrellados, donde no hubo un solo sobreviviente, los muertos se cuentan por encima de los 250. Esta noche, en Nueva York, hay 200 bomberos muertos o prendidos cuando se vinieron abajo las torres del comercio y 78 policías también fallecidos. En total, hasta ahora, más de 500 muertos. Y falta aún de contar la población, le iba a decir a usted la población civil, falta aún de contar los cientos y miles de personas que se encontraban ahí, en esas Torres Gemelas, en Nueva York, en el momento de producirse los impactos de los aviones y después el colapso. En estas torres ya desaparecidas trabajaban 50.000 personas. La gran mayoría, sí, la gran mayoría se informa pudo escapar, pero cuando se habla de 50.000 personas y de la magnitud de este golpe, no puede hablarse esta noche de minorías, sobre todo cuando el común denominador de esa minoría es la muerte. Esta noche le invito a usted, vamos a hacer un recuento de daños en este martes negro en Estados Unidos, un día que nunca se va a olvidar. Estados Unidos vive hoy una de las noches más tensas de su historia. Desnudada su vulnerabilidad, se dispone a dormir, si es que alguien puede dormir hoy en Estados Unidos, con la sensación de que su seguridad ha sido destruida. ha sido vulnerada, ha sido destrozada. El primer golpe ocurrió minutos antes de las 9 de la mañana, hora de Nueva York, casi a las 8 de la mañana, tiempo de México. Un jet Boeing que habían secuestrado en Boston, uno de los más grandes, el 767, es lanzado contra una de las torres gemelas del World Trade Center. 18 minutos después, otro Boeing también secuestrado y también en Boston, pero un Boeing 737, es lanzado contra la otra torre. El golpe es brutal. Minutos después, un rascacielos se desploma. Y luego se desplomaría el otro en una imagen, esta estremecedora, que repito, jamás vamos a olvidar. Mientras todo esto ocurría en Nueva York, en Washington, otro avión, otro Boeing 767, otro avión Boeing 767 también secuestrado y también en Boston, es lanzado contra el cuarto piso del Pentágono. Ahí colapsa la sede del Departamento de la Defensa de Estados Unidos, el corazón de su ejército, corazón y cerebro. Un cuarto avión, un Jumbo Jet 747 también secuestrado, habría de desplomarse en Pittsburgh, en Pensilvania, todavía sin tener claro qué fue lo que ocurrió a bordo de ese avión y a dónde se dirigía realmente. Hasta ahora, en los 4 accidentes aéreos, en las 4 tragedias aéreas, han muerto 266 personas entre pasajeros y tripulantes. Esta noche nadie se atreve ni puede aventurar el número total de víctimas. Sin embargo, solo hay una idea. Estamos hablando de miles de heridos y aseguran esta noche en Nueva York también de miles de muertos. Permítame presentarle a usted ahora esta animación de los ataques a las torres gemelas del World Trade Center. Le voy a mostrar a usted las torres en esta animación hecha por Televisa. Son las 9 de la mañana, hora de Nueva York. Han despegado ya los aviones de Boston y cuando dan la vuelta es justo el momento del secuestro. El primero impacta una torre y el segundo la otra. Salen columnas de humo de la parte superior de la torre. Esta es la isla de Manhattan. Esta es otra recreación de mis compañeros de producción de noticieros Televisa. Y le voy a mostrar a usted el momento en que primero se estrella un avión y enseguida el otro y luego lo que sigue, el desplome. Ahí va el primer avión en esta animación y le pega en el tercio alto. El mundo veía sorprendido esto cuando a los 18 minutos presenció esto, un segundo avión a la segunda torre. Un ejercicio de cálculo perfecto, las alas centraron, lo centró, lo puso donde quiso. Y luego, a los pocos minutos, el colapso de la primera torre, desaparecía la primera torre. Y luego lo que el mundo veía incrédulo, la desaparición total de este centro financiero, orgullo y símbolo de Nueva York y de Estados Unidos.
America changed forever after a devastating day of terror.
This is Fox News Channel's continuing coverage of the attacks on our nation on September 11th, 2001. A day of terror and tragedy, the likes of which have never been seen. The first evidence we saw Tuesday morning, shortly before 9 a.m., a plane crashes into one of the World Trade Centers.
And then just minutes later, another plane pummels into the other World Trade Tower, ripping apart the structure in the blink of an eye.
And just as all of us literally stopped in our tracks in disbelief, and just as the government realized what was happening, the Pentagon, a symbol of our military might, itself became a target, another plane crashing into that massive structure in Virginia right outside our nation's capital.
Meanwhile, in the middle of the chaos, about 80 miles outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, another plane goes down, killing everyone on board that plane as well. Hello, everyone. It is 1 o'clock in the east. I'm Rick Fulbaum.
And I'm Lori Dew, and what an extraordinary day it has been for everyone here at the Fox News Channel here in New York and all over the country. And perhaps the most difficult part of all of these terrorist attacks is that we still do not know yet the number of dead or injured.
And we might not know for some time to come. Some law enforcement people in New York City say it's possible that 10,000 people died in the World Trade Center attacks. Apparently up to 50,000 people work in those two towers alone.
That's right. It may be days and even weeks before we know exactly how many people were in there. We have team coverage across the nation tonight.
At what was once the site of the World Trade Center, a massive search and recovery operation is now underway. I'm David Lee Miller in Lower Manhattan, and coming up I'll have the complete details.
At the Pentagon, the fire is still smoldering. The effort to find out exactly what happened here continues, and worldwide the military is at DEFCON threat alert Delta, the highest. We'll have complete details coming up in just a moment.
Los Angeles International Airport, along with every major landmark in the western U.S. under lockdown. The shockwaves felt on this side of the nation. I'm John Dupree. I'll be back live with the very latest.
We want to begin our Fox team coverage with Fox's David Lee Miller.
David is at Ground Zero in Lower Manhattan, where he's been all day long. Hi, David.
Hi there, Rick. We do have some good news to report. In some sense, we've already seen something of a miracle. According to the mayor of the city of New York, we do know that there are people definitely alive under the rubble of what was once the World Trade Center. That in itself, miraculous. Add to that now the fact that some of the survivors, two of them now, have, according to the mayor, placed phone calls to family members in Seattle. That just adds to the miracle that people have survived, because this entire area throughout the day has suffered a serious lack of cell phone service. In fact, the media as well as the authorities have been unable to get out on some of the cell phones. In fact, earlier today, some of the emergency workers actually broke into a communications store here, hoping to get their hands on walkie-talkies, because the cell phone system just wasn't doing the job. So right now we do know that there are thousands and thousands of people believed to be buried under what remains of the World Trade Center. How many of them are alive, though? That question still remains to be answered, although there definitely are survivors. Now it is going to definitely be a race against the clock to get them out. Now, towards that end, right now, in this area, they are bringing in some very heavy equipment. They are bringing in cranes, they are bringing in tractors, they are bringing in portable lights, so that by the time dawn arrives, this search and rescue effort in earnest can really be underway. Up until now, the authorities have not been able to do any serious searching for a number of different reasons. Number one, there was a massive fire going on just a few blocks south of where I'm now standing. And secondly, another building, not the Twin Towers themselves, but a building identified as the World Trade No. 7, a 47-story building, was in flames, and it was thought that it might collapse, and that's exactly what happened. At about 5:40 this afternoon, that building collapsed. It is now resting on its side. The two World Trade Towers are collapsed, something like accordions, according to some of the rescue workers who are down there. They say the antenna system is impaled into the sidewalk. That's the huge antenna system that rested on top of the Twin World Trade Center. Now, as to who might be trapped inside, we are told now that it is feared some of the rescue workers may be trapped inside those buildings or may have died on the scene. The mayor of the city of New York is reporting now that between 30 and 40 policemen are missing. 300 plus firemen are feared dead at this hour, including the chief of the department as well as the chaplain for the New York City Fire Department. For a while, in fact, the situation was so volatile that the mayor of the city of New York, Mayor Giuliani, who came down here to inspect the scene, got trapped in a building nearby, 75 Barclay Street, because no one anticipated that these buildings were in fact going to collapse. But the mayor got out. Unfortunately, though, a number of the top brass for the New York City Police Department did not. Now, as for the Isle of Manhattan, essentially it is sealed off from the rest of the world. You can leave the island, but you cannot enter. All the bridges and tunnels are closed if you want to come into Manhattan. The situation is even more secure down here south of 14th Street. The police department has warned people, do not come down here. This area is only for emergency personnel. If you try to come down to Lower Manhattan below 14th Street, you will be arrested. Back to you in the studio.
Well, we still have a little bit of a fire going on here. They think they can knock it out early in the morning as soon as they get some more light on the situation, and then they will begin what is known as a search and rescue, and then after that they will begin the recovery. We have some pictures that we can show you that were taken earlier this evening. This is the video being shared by all networks of the scene very close to the impact site. Now, this is the south side of the Capitol. You're looking at a building right now. The Pentagon is basically consists of 5 concentric rings, A through E. The outer ring is the E ring. The plane came in with such force under full throttle that it penetrated the E, D, and part of the C wings of the south side of the Pentagon building. So it was moving. But what a structure this is. It is so solidly built out of old school materials, brick, mortar, and stone, that it was hit on one side, and people who were on the other side of the building scarcely knew anything had happened. But however, one of the people who was in the building earlier today at 9:40 a.m. when this plane slammed into the Pentagon was none other than the Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, and he said earlier tonight that he heard a shudder. Take a listen.
I felt the shock of the airplane hitting the building, went through the building and then out into the area, and they were bringing bodies out that had been injured, most of which were alive and moving, but seriously injured. And a lot of volunteers were doing a terrific job helping to bring them out of the buildings and get them into stretchers and into ambulances and into airlifts.
And while we must point out that many parts of the government basically had to shut down, the Capitol was evacuated. That's actually where I started my day early this morning, and they evacuated that building, and the members of the House and Senate leadership were taken to a bunker where they were making decisions and staying in touch with the president telephonically. The president was out of town. He was in Louisiana for a while and then later in Nebraska and came back only this evening. But at the Pentagon, they continued to stay in business all day. Even though this building was under attack and burning, they were operating out of the very basement of this operation and continuing to direct the operations of the military. A couple of quick things we need to pass on to you. The Arlington County Fire Department has been working on the scene throughout the day. They are now giving us the estimate that between 100 and 800 people may have died at this location. That's a big variety of numbers. Of 100, 800, it's a large difference between those two numbers. But apparently they're giving us the best and worst case scenario. There were 67 people aboard the plane. All of them are, we believe, perished, of course. There were about 850 people who could have been working in this particular part of the building. This part of the building, however, had been under construction and renovation, and so people were just beginning to move in. No one here can give us a firm number, but the best estimate is that the worst case scenario could be as high as 800 people died here at the Pentagon. And the Arlington County Fire Department believes it is entirely possible there are still people alive inside this building. They say they have a pancake structure kind of collapse, and in those kinds of situations, it often is the case that people survive. Back to you, Rick, Lori.
Every major landmark, Rick and Lori, from the Mexican border crossing in San Diego to the Space Needle in Seattle, Washington, closed or under tight security, giving you a sense for how hard the impact hit the west coast of the United States since those 4 airliners crashed there in New York City and in Washington and in Pennsylvania. The Los Angeles International Airport, the West Coast's busiest airport, normally where 150,000 to 250,000 people travel via the airway, is closed. 178 planes poised this morning to take off from this airport are grounded. Now, the ATF, the FBI, and local police bomb experts have been through every terminal, every building, every parking structure, and every airplane and have declared this facility safe. However, it is closed and will remain so, along with San Francisco International and all other airports that facilitate commercial flight in California and all the western states, until the FAA tomorrow at noon decides whether to open again and get back to business. 3 flights were destined for this airport. The American flight number 11, American flight number 77, and United flight number 175, all bound for Los Angeles International, to arrive here around noontime or about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, respectively. And so throughout the day, loved ones and family members of the victims on board those 3 flights have been trickling in. They were taken away and escorted by United and American officials to private offices that the airlines have here on the plant, and they were consoled and they were briefed and they were helped. Then they were whisked away when the airport was completely shut down and cordoned off and swept. As you can see behind me, if you'll take my picture again, this normally teeming thoroughfare where bumper-to-bumper traffic is a daily occurrence is now empty. You may, over my voice, hear in the background the recorded public address system still sounding, sounding messages to nobody except police authorities and us all across the western United States. Major landmarks are closed, from the Space Needle to the Mexican border, and 54 dams have been locked down by the Army Corps of Engineers. Hopefully that gives you a sense for how seriously we are taking the tragedies in the East, also here in the West. That is the very latest. We'll keep you posted from this side of the story. Rick and Lori.
All right, John Dupree at LAX in Los Angeles. Thanks very much.
It's starting to look like extraordinary heroism and selflessness played out on board United Flight 93, that perhaps passengers, knowing that they were going to eventually die, decided to storm the cockpit in hopes of thwarting terrorist plans to hit a more high-profile target. We're getting some insight into this tonight. The San Francisco Chronicle reporting tonight that a passenger named Thomas Burnett phoned his wife Dina from the doomed 757. Burnett's priest telling the paper the call went like this, with Burnett saying, quote, "I know we're all going to die, but there's 3 of us going to do something about it. I love you, honey." The call then ended. What happened next on board? Investigators hope that the jet's black boxes will provide this vital insight. Now, unlike the other terrorism targets at the Pentagon and also there in New York City, investigators here believe that the black boxes will be recovered.
Once again, a live picture of Lower Manhattan, what's left of the World Trade Center, a deadly assault on America, and now a lot of people are asking, how could someone commit such a horrible act? Joining us now to talk about that is Brian Levin, director at the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University. He is also a former New York City police officer. Mr. Levin, thanks very much for talking to us. And, you know, I said, how could one person, but clearly we're not talking about one person here, are we?
No, we're talking about a coordinated and professional effort here that took a long time to plan, could be even more than a year. This was executed with dastardly efficiency, and it's one of those things that those of us who track terrorism had feared. A lot of times the terrorists in the past have tried to do things and they were more like Keystone Cops. These individuals were people who were very well trained, and they trained for a multitude of different things. They would fall under a category of terrorists that we would call ideologically motivated terrorists, and they're probably the most dangerous of these ideologically motivated, and that is the theologically or religiously motivated, these zealots. And again, this zealots don't belong to any one religion, but in this particular case, these people were committed to their cause and willing to die for it, in fact, wanted to achieve martyrdom against an entity like the United States, which is considered the great Satan. These are the hardest kinds of individuals to deter because they don't care about losing their lives. In fact, that's part of the plan.
So who are we talking about, Mr. Levin? Is there a short list? Of course, everyone is thinking about Osama bin Laden. Some people are actually saying Osama bin Laden, although no government official is on the record as of yet. But is there a short list that you could tell us about?
Sure. I think Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda is at the top of the list. Look, this is someone who comes from a family that is quite wealthy, a billionaire dynasty out of Saudi Arabia. It also resembles the types of attacks we've seen before that were attempted. Give you an example. About 10 years ago, there was a plot to blow up the arterial highways and bridges coming into New York from New Jersey. Also to blow up the Diamond District, the United Nations and the Empire State Building. It was thwarted. There was also a plot to blow up 9 airliners over the Pacific. There are very few entities out there that have the motive and opportunity and resources to carry it out. To be sure, there are people throughout the world who loathe and indeed have extreme hatred for the United States, but I'd say bin Laden's group has to be at the top of this list.
Mr. Levin, it's Lori Dew. Question for you. Hi there. Thanks for being with us. Osama bin Laden has been interviewed. He can be found when he wants to be found. So what is the United States going to have to do to try to locate this man, and even go so far as to hunt him down?
Well, he's a difficult guy to catch. First of all, he's being harbored by the Taliban, which, look, let me tell you something. This denial from the Taliban is rubbish.
Right.
The Taliban has harbored this known international fugitive for some time now, and I think the Taliban is not necessarily responsible for this, obviously, but they certainly know that they're harboring a known wanted terrorist. This guy travels in nomadic convoys probably throughout Afghanistan, and probably with a wink and a nod from the Taliban regime. He might also travel into rural parts of Pakistan, for all we know. American intelligence did track him. They almost killed him at one point a few years ago. They missed. They were tracking him through the use of a satellite telephone. But, you know, when you're talking about someone who is being harbored in an extremely remote part of the world by a government that is at least not against him, it makes it a more difficult operation. That being said, I think you're going to see a ratcheted response from the United States military to catch him, and, by the way, the people responsible for him. One thing that I just want to say, even if you take out Osama bin Laden, he has many minions out there who regard him as a mentor and who would carry out this work even if he was taken out. The thing here is he has the financial resources and the wherewithal to coordinate this kind of stuff.
Presumably the National Security Council and the intelligence community are meeting to talk about options to try to find bin Laden or whoever is responsible for this. We may not know who's responsible for quite some time. Should we have confidence in our National Security Council and in our FBI that they will find whoever's responsible for this?
Yes, I'm living proof that the FBI does their job. When I was working at a civil rights office in Alabama, they thwarted a bombing attempt. The thing is, in a pluralistic, democratic country like ours, we don't live in a hermetically sealed society. And one of the things that they do have is hindsight now. In other words, they can go in and look at all their intercepts. They can look at manifests. They can piece together information that they might not have been able to put together before the picture had come together. So I have a high degree of confidence that the FBI, who are scrambling people internationally now, will catch many of the people responsible.
All right, Brian Levin, terrorism expert, director of the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State. Thank you very much.
ناصر المستضعفين المؤمنين الصابرين وقاهر الجبابرة والمستكبرين. فها هي أمريكا قد أصابها الله سبحانه وتعالى في مقتل من مقاتلها، فدمر أعظم مبانيها، فلله الحمد والمنة. وها هي أمريكا قد امتلأت رعبا من شمالها إلى جنوبها ومن شرقها إلى غربها، فلله الحمد والمنة. وما تذوقه أمريكا اليوم هو شيء يسير مما ذقناه منذ عشرات السنين، فإن أمتنا منذ 89 عاما تذوق هذا الذل وتذوق هذه المهانة، فيقتل أبناؤها وتسفك دماؤها ويعتدى على مقدساتها وتحكم بغير ما أنزل الله، ولا سامع ولا مجيب. فلما أن وفق الله سبحانه وتعالى كوكبة من كواكب الإسلام، طليعة من طلاع الإسلام، فتح الله عليهم فدمروا أمريكا تدميرا. أرجو الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يرفع قدرهم وأن يرزقهم الفردوس الأعلى، إنه ولي ذلك والقادر عليه. الحمد لله ناصر المستضعفين المؤمنين. فينبغي على كل مسلم بعد هذا الحدث وبعد أن تحدث كبار المسؤولين في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، ابتداء برأس الكفر العالمي بوش ومن معه، وقد خرجوا أسرا وبطرا برجالهم وبخيلهم، وقد ألبوا علينا حتى الدول التي تنتسب إلى الإسلام على هذه الفئة.
It is my hope that in the months and years ahead, life will return almost to normal. We'll go back to our lives and routines, and that is good. Even grief recedes with time and grace. But our resolve must not pass. Each of us will remember what happened that day and to whom it happened. We'll remember the moment the news came, where we were and what we were doing. Some will remember an image of a fire or a story of rescue. Some will carry memories of a face and a voice gone forever. And I will carry this. It is the police shield of a man named George Howard, who died at the World Trade Center trying to save others. It was given to me by his mom, Arlene, as a proud memorial to her son. It is my reminder of lives that ended in a task that does not end.